What if the most powerful medicine in the world isn't a pill or, a vaccine, but actually a two-story steel building?
I mean, it sounds completely absurd when you just say it out loud like that.
Right. But welcome to the deep dive. We know you're here because, well, you love those kind of aha moments. You want to cut through the heavy academic jargon, and you really just want to understand how the world actually works.
And today's mission is, honestly, it's going to completely reframe how you think about healthcare.
We are looking at a really fascinating, massive 2026 cluster randomized controlled trial. This was published in Nature Medicine. And the big overarching question we are exploring today for you is this: can architecture act as preventative medicine?
It's a question that it really challenges the entire traditional medical model. But to really grasp what this study is doing, we need to set the scene first.
Yeah, let's do that. Where are we looking?
We're heading to rural sub-Saharan Africa, specifically the Mtwara region of Tanzania. And in this part of the world, children face just a relentless daily gauntlet.
It's heartbreaking when you look at the numbers.
It really is. We're looking at the three major childhood killers in this specific region. So malaria, which alone accounts for over 610,000 deaths annually around the globe.
Wow.
And then diarrheal diseases and acute respiratory infections, or ARIs.
And usually, our response to those specific threats is highly clinical, right? Like distribute pills, send in mosquito nets, deliver vaccines.
Exactly, the standard public health playbook.
But what if instead of just distributing items that require people to use them perfectly every single day, we engineered a house that inherently fights off those pathogens?
Yeah,
Like, what if the building itself is the intervention?
that's the crux of it.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to really appreciate the solution here, we first have to deeply understand the deadly status quo. We have to look at why the current housing situation is basically a perfect storm for disease.
Right, so picture the reality of a traditional rural home in this region. You're typically standing inside a single-story structure. The walls are made of mud or, wattle and daub. Above you is just the thatched roof.
Yeah.
And beneath your feet is simply compacted earth.
Just dirt.
Just dirt. There's no running water, so whatever water the family does have is stored in, like buckets or clay pots that can really easily become contaminated.
Right.
And crucially, cooking happens indoors over an open fire.
When you lay it out exactly like that, I mean, it sounds rustic, sure. But from a public health perspective, it's essentially a highly efficient pathogen delivery system.
It really is. Think about the day-to-day lived experience in that space. That thatched roof and those mud walls, they degrade quickly in the harsh weather.
They crack, right.
Yeah, they crack, creating literal open doors for the Anopheles mosquito, which is the primary vector for malaria there.
It's just a free pass into the house.
Exactly. Then look at the floor. An earthen floor is impossible to truly sanitize. I mean, you can't bleach dirt.
No, of course not.
So it becomes this permanent harbor for the pathogens and parasites that cause severe diarrhea. And that indoor open cooking fire, the smoke doesn't just disappear.
It just hangs there.
It hangs in the air, filling the room, and deeply irritating the lungs of young children, which, severely increases their vulnerability to those acute respiratory infections.
It's literally a trifecta of risk. The environment they sleep in is actively making them sick.
Every single day.
So the researchers and architects behind this study, they looked at this reality and realized a few Band-Aids weren't going to fix it. They needed a complete redesign from the ground up.
A total paradigm shift.
And they came up with something they call the Star Home. And I have to say, I'm looking at the photos from the source material right now, and it looks like something out of a futuristic architectural magazine.
Just sitting right there in rural Tanzania.
It's wild.
It really is a striking visual contrast to the surrounding landscape. The Star Home is this novel, double-story structure built with a very modern light-gauge steel frame.
But the brilliance isn't in the aesthetics at all, is it?
Not at all. Every single design element you see is a direct, calculated counterattack against those three specific diseases we just talked about.
Let's actually walk through the anatomy of this house because the engineering here is so clever. First off, it's 2 stories, and the bedrooms are entirely upstairs.
Right.
Why does it matter? Well, the malaria-carrying mosquitoes in this specific region generally fly pretty close to the ground.
They're low flyers.
Exactly. So by simply raising the sleeping area to the 2nd floor, you're passively disrupting their normal flight path. They literally just fly under you.
It's so simple but effective, and it goes beyond just the elevation, too. The exterior of the house is entirely rethought.
How so?
Well, instead of solid, stifling mud walls upstairs, the facade is wrapped in a highly specific air-permeable shade net. It looks almost like a porous screen.
Hmm?
This does two critical things. First, it optimizes cross-ventilation. The breeze flows right through, dropping the indoor temperature by about 2.3 degrees Celsius compared to a traditional home.
Which is huge in that climate.
Massive. But second, and this is the really ingenious entomological part, it disperses human exhaled carbon dioxide.
Wait, which is the homing beacon for mosquitoes?
Mhm.
They track us by following the CO2 we breathe out.
Exactly. Try to imagine sleeping in a poorly ventilated mud hut. Your exhaled CO2 just pools around you.
Like invisible cloud.
Right. It concentrates in the stagnant air, creating a dense scent plume that draws hungry mosquitoes straight to your bed. But the Star Home's shade net diffuses your breath so rapidly into the surrounding night breeze that the mosquito literally loses your scent trail.
You become an invisible target.
You disappear.
That is amazing. They're basically using aerodynamics to hide the family.
It's pure physics.
And then moving downstairs, the ground floor is made of concrete, and it's slightly elevated off the dirt.
Which is key for the enteric diseases.
Right, because it means a mother can actually sweep it, wash it, and keep it clean. It doesn't turn into a breeding ground for bacteria, which directly cuts down on the transmission of those diarrheal diseases.
On top of that, the roof is made of corrugated iron rather than thatch. But it isn't just there to keep the rain out.
It's designed to catch it.
Exactly. The rainwater is funneled directly into a 2,000-liter storage tank equipped with its own filter. So suddenly, the family has a copious, reliable supply of clean water right at their doorstep for months out of the year.
No more walking miles every single day to a potentially contaminated stream.
It's a game changer.
And to tackle the respiratory issues, the cooking area has a specialized smoke-diverting stove that funnels the toxic fumes entirely away from the kids.
Plus, there's a separate outdoor fly-proof pit latrine.
It's honestly like a structural vaccine.
Oh, I like that term.
Right, it's like a large-scale, wearable health device that just passively protects the family while they go about their normal lives.
A structural vaccine is a really great way to conceptualize it. I mean, traditional vaccines require the human immune system to do the heavy lifting of fighting off the intruder.
Building the antibodies and all that.
Yeah. But this house relies on physics, aerodynamics, and architecture to prevent the pathogen from ever reaching the immune system in the first place.
But, a clever design is only great in theory. The real question is, does this actually save lives out in the muddy, chaotic, real world?
And that brings us to the trial itself.
The mechanics of this study were absolutely massive. They tracked children under the age of 13 for 3 full years.
The scale really lends incredible weight to the data. They compared 110 star homes against 513 traditional homes across the exact same region.
And how did they decide who got the houses? Because that seems tricky.
Right. To decide who got these incredibly valuable new houses, they used a village lottery system. It's really the most ethical way to randomize an intervention that is this potentially life-changing.
And the results after those 3 years are just astonishing. I mean, the data shows a 44% reduction in malaria incidence for children in the star homes,
Huge.
a 30% reduction in diarrhea, and an 18% drop in acute respiratory infections. Those are massive, tangible public health victories.
They really are.
But hold on, I have to push back here. Because I was reading the actual data tables in the study, and this one part just doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, lay it on me.
The study notes that by the last year of the trial, 98% of the kids in both the star homes and the traditional homes were sleeping under insecticide-treated bed nets.
That's right.
So if almost every single kid in this study has a mosquito net, shouldn't the malaria rates be pretty much the same across the board? Why does the house even matter if everyone's already wrapped in a net?
What's fascinating here is a concept called entomological synergy.
Okay, break that down for us.
So a bed net is a fantastic life-saving tool, but it only works perfectly when a human being uses it perfectly every single night.
Right, which never happens.
Think about the reality of sleeping under a heavy, treated net in a small, completely unventilated mud hut in the hot, humid climate of sub-Saharan Africa.
It's got to be stifling in there.
It is deeply physically uncomfortable.
Right, you're sweating, the baby's crying from the heat, maybe you kick the net off in your sleep, or you just don't tuck the edges in properly because you are just desperate for a breeze.
Exactly. Human behavior and comfort dictate how well the tool actually works. But the star home, with its breathable shade net facade and elevated sleeping area, provides crucial passive cooling.
Right, that 2.3-degree drop.
Yeah, it drops the temperature just enough to make sleeping under that net infinitely more comfortable. You're far more likely to stay tucked in all night long.
That makes total sense.
And beyond the comfort factor, the house itself acts as a primary physical barrier. Independent entomological surveys during the trial found that the Star homes had 51% fewer malaria-carrying mosquitoes indoors to begin with.
Oh, I see. So it's a double whammy. Only half the mosquitoes are even making it inside, and the ones that DO get in have a much harder time reaching a child who is actually comfortably sleeping fully under their net.
You got it. The architecture facilitates the proper use of the traditional medical intervention. They work together synergistically.
Okay, so we've established that the children in these high-tech homes are getting sick far less often. But what does that absence of disease actually do to their developing bodies?
This is a great point.
Because the researchers didn't just measure sickness, did they? They measured physical growth.
They did. This was a really vital secondary outcome of the trial. They tracked a nested cohort of children under the age of 5, carefully measuring their physical development over the years.
And what did they find?
They found that children living in the Star homes grew significantly taller than their peers in the traditional homes. They had a statistically significantly steeper height for age Z-score slope.
Whoa, stop right there. A steeper height for age Z-score slope. Translate that for me. What does that actually mean in human terms?
Simply put, it means that over the 3 years, the children in the Star homes were catching up to their healthy expected growth targets at a much faster rate than the kids in the mud huts.
So they were literally spreading up faster.
Their trajectory of growing taller was noticeably accelerated.
And here's where it gets really interesting. I was looking at those exact anthropometric charts. The kids got taller, yes, but their weight didn't change significantly compared to the control group.
Right.
They grew up, but they didn't grow out. How does that make sense? If they're generally healthier, shouldn't they just be bigger all around?
It definitely seems counterintuitive at first, at least until you understand a biological phenomenon known as lean catch-up growth.
Lean catch-up growth. Okay.
To wrap your head around this, you really have to think about a young child's developing body as a closed system with a very strict metabolic budget.
A metabolic budget. Okay, so energy in, energy out.
Exactly. When a child is living in a traditional home, constantly exposed to all those environmental pathogens, their immune system is forced to work in permanent overdrive.
Just constantly fighting.
They're constantly fighting off low-grade subclinical malaria infections. They're battling parasitic worms they picked up from the earthen floor. They're fighting systemic inflammation in their lungs from breathing in that cooking smoke.
It's exhausting just hearing about it.
Yeah. And that constant, unrelenting immune response requires massive amounts of metabolic energy.
So the energy from the daily food they eat isn't going toward building bone and muscle. It's getting diverted just to keep them alive.
Exactly. But when you move that same child into a Star home, you suddenly remove that massive pathogenic burden. The immune system finally gets to power down.
Oh, wow.
The child's body suddenly finds itself with this huge surplus of metabolic energy that used to be spent on fighting fever and infection.
And what does it do with them?
Well, because these children are highly active and receiving adequate but not, excessive nutrition, the body doesn't just store this extra energy as fat, which would increase their overall weight.
Right.
Instead, evolutionary biology takes the wheel, and the body prioritizes skeletal and lean tissue growth. It prioritizes reaching its maximum genetic height potential.
It's exactly like a smartphone. Think about it.
Okay, I'm listening.
When you have, 20 heavy apps running in the background, GPS, video streaming, 3 different games, your battery drains incredibly fast, and the phone gets physically hot.
Right, it lags.
The operating system is struggling just to keep everything from crashing.
Yeah.
That's the child's body fighting off constant infections in a traditional home.
That's a very apt analogy. The battery is completely drained by background tasks.
But then the Star home essentially acts as a master switch that force quits all those background diseases. Suddenly the processor is freed up,
Yeah.
the phone cools down.
Yes.
The child's operating system can now pour 100% of its battery power into the main application, which is just growing up strong and tall.
And we really can't overstate how important that is. Preventing physical stunting in early childhood has massive lifelong implications.
Because it's not just about height, is it?
No, not at all. Stunted children often face permanent cognitive delays, lower educational attainment, and significantly reduced lifetime earnings. By facilitating this lean catch-up growth, The Star Home isn't just keeping the kid from getting sick today. It's literally altering the economic and social trajectory of that child's entire life.
Which brings us to a really fascinating tension in this study. Okay, so the biology is beautiful.
Yeah.
The engineering is flawless. But human behavior isn't a math equation.
It never is.
How did the actual families react to suddenly moving into these two-story, steel-framed, totally alien-looking structures?
It was a rocky start, to say the least, and this really highlights the crucial difference between a perfectly controlled laboratory experiment and a messy, real-world community intervention.
What went wrong initially?
Early on, the researchers realized the houses just weren't being fully utilized. Children were sleeping downstairs on the concrete floor, or even outside, completely negating the protective benefits of the elevated, ventilated bedrooms.
Why? I mean, if you hand someone a safer, cleaner, objectively better house, why wouldn't they use it the way it's designed?
It all comes down to the complex social dynamics of the lottery system. Remember, the families who won these houses were randomly selected, and many of them were formerly some of the most economically disadvantaged people in their respective villages.
Okay.
Suddenly, literally overnight, they are gifted this incredible, high-tech, expensive-looking home. This sparked intense envy among their neighbors who didn't win the lottery.
Of course.
And in a close-knit rural community, that envy quickly mutated into anxiety, suspicion, and rumors.
It's human nature, right? Think about it for a second. Imagine if the government randomly built a futuristic $1 million eco-home for one family on your street, but left everyone else alone. You can absolutely see how the neighborhood gossip would start spinning out of control.
The rumors got incredibly intense. There were literal whispers that the houses were structurally unsafe, or worse, that there were sinister, supernatural motives behind them. Children were genuinely terrified to sleep in the upstairs rooms because they had heard so many frightening stories from their neighbors.
So the intervention was failing, not because of the design, but because of the culture.
Exactly. You can't just drop alien architecture into a community and expect immediate, seamless compliance. The hardware was perfect, but the software, the human cultural integration, was failing.
So the researchers had to completely pivot. They couldn't just be architects and doctors pointing at blueprints anymore. They had to become sociologists.
They really did.
The study details how they launched these massive, culturally sensitive community engagement campaigns. They funded local radio dramas that actually incorporated the star homes into the plot lines to normalize them.
Which is brilliant.
Right. They hosted football bonanzas to bring the whole community together around the houses in a fun, positive way. They even embedded local research staff within the communities to patiently build trust and physically demonstrate that the houses were safe.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it explains a very specific, almost bizarre anomaly in the data.
What's that?
Normally, with public health interventions, compliance drops off over time. People get lazy, they stop taking the pill, they stop using the net. But here, the results actually got better as time went on.
Really?
Yeah. In year 1, the incidence rate ratio for malaria was 0.64, but by year 3, it had dropped all the way down to 0.44.
Let's translate that for everyone. So an incidence rate ratio dropping from 0.64 to 0.44, does that basically mean the protection got significantly stronger as the years went by?
Exactly. The houses didn't magically get better at repelling mosquitoes. It took time for the humans inside them to adopt the new behavior.
To trust the building.
Yes. It took time to overcome the fear, to ignore the envious rumors, and to build the daily habit of actually sleeping upstairs under the net every single night. Once the community trust was fully built, the architecture was finally allowed to operate at its maximum efficiency.
That is such a vital lesson for any public health initiative.
Yep.
You absolutely cannot ignore the sociology of the people you're trying to help. Okay, so the homes work beautifully in the real world, the biology responds perfectly, and the community has finally learned to love them. But I'm looking at these photos, and steel frames and two-story structures do not look cheap.
They do not.
Is this just some billionaire-funded utopian fantasy? Or can an actual village afford to scale this up?
That is the ultimate test of any intervention, isn't it? Is it economically sustainable? The financial analysis in this study is actually quite robust.
Well, here are the numbers.
Let's look at the raw cost factor first. The study paid the local construction company $8,818 per star home. That breaks down to about $118 per square meter.
I mean, for a farming family in rural Tanzania, nearly $9,000 is a massive, almost insurmountable amount of money.
It absolutely is. However, we have to look at what the aspirational standard is in these communities.
What do you mean?
When rural families finally save enough money to upgrade their living situation from a mud and thatch hut, the standard upgrade they buy is a single-story, concrete-base, cement block house.
Okay.
When you compare the material and construction costs side by side, the Star Home is actually 24% cheaper than that standard cement block upgrade.
Oh, wow. Okay, that shifts the perspective completely. So it's not competing with the cost of building a mud hut. It's competing with the cost of the next step up on the economic ladder.
Exactly.
And it's actually the cheaper option.
It is. And the environmental impact is perhaps even more striking than the cost.
Right, because cement is terrible for the environment.
Cement production is one of the largest contributors to global carbon emissions today. The Star Home uses 73% less concrete than that standard cement block house.
That's a huge reduction.
It weighs 69% less overall, and most importantly, for the climate, it has 57% less embodied carbon.
So it's cheaper to build for the family, and it's vastly better for the global climate. But what about the long-term economics? Because maintaining a house is, a 50-year endeavor.
Yeah. So what does this all mean for the macroeconomic picture of the region? The researchers ran a preliminary order of magnitude assessment, looking at a 50-year lifespan for the house.
Okay.
They factored in the initial construction cost, plus 50 years of general maintenance, totaling roughly $13,000 going out.
Okay, $13,000 goes out over 50 years. What comes back into the community?
The estimated return on that investment is staggering. First, you calculate the direct medical bills saved by avoiding decades of malaria, severe diarrhea, and ARIs.
Right, less time at the clinic.
Then you calculate the adult workdays that caregivers don't lose because they aren't forced to stay home with sick children.
Oh, it's huge.
And crucially, you factor in the lifetime productivity gains of a child who avoids physical stunting and achieves their full cognitive and physical potential.
You're literally putting a dollar amount on human potential.
Yes. And when you add all that up, the return is estimated to be nearly $50,000 over the life of the house. For every single dollar invested in building a Star Home today, the societal and household return is $4. It's a 4x return on investment.
That completely blows my mind. It shifts the entire paradigm. A house isn't just a shelter to keep the rain off your head anymore. It's an active economic engine and a primary healthcare facility, all wrapped into one structure.
It proves definitively that housing is not a neutral backdrop to our lives. It's an active, daily participant in our biology and our economy.
Let's try to synthesize this incredible journey we've just been on. We started with a stack of data about a localized trial in rural Tanzania. We looked at a house with a breathable shade net, a raised floor, and a rainwater tank.
And what we discovered is that architecture is an entirely untapped frontier in preventative medicine.
We learned that the way a building breathes can literally hide you from a deadly mosquito. We learned that an easily washable floor can alter the metabolic budget of a child's body, allowing them to force quit infections and literally grow taller.
We saw that even the most perfect engineering has to bow to human sociology and the power of neighborhood gossip.
Right. And finally, we saw that sustainable, health-focused architecture isn't just an environmental pipe dream. It's a massive economic multiplier.
This raises an important question for you, the listener. The Star Home proves unequivocally that the spaces we inhabit are never neutral. They are actively negotiating with our biology every single second of the day.
They're either actively aiding our immune systems or they're taxing them.
Precisely.
And that's exactly what I want to leave you with today, because it is so easy to look at a study from rural Tanzania and think, wow, that's amazing for them, and then just, move on with our day. But let's bring it back home for a second.
It applies everywhere.
If we now have definitive clinical proof that the physical design of a house can act as a structural vaccine against infectious diseases in Africa, what invisible health impacts are the modern homes in the developed world having on us right now?
It's a slightly terrifying thought.
Right. Could the way we design our own high-rise apartments, our sprawling suburban houses, or our completely open-plan corporate offices be secretly shaping our immune systems?
Or mental health.
Exactly. Our hermetically sealed, artificially air-conditioned environments quietly contributing to chronic stress, to autoimmune issues, or even to our overall mental health. The medical lens we just applied to a mud hut in Tanzania isn't just for looking at malaria.
No, it's universal.
It's time we turn that exact same lens on the walls around us. Look at your own living space a little differently today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.